Thank you to all of our panelists and to all of our attendees for joining the event today. Today we're going to discuss talent attraction, learn from your local recruiters and real estate professionals. We can just start off with 2020 was crazy in many ways, not only from where we started in February to where we are now. It's truly unbelievable. Montana was a different place compared to it was nationally, not only in real estate and recruiting people, but mainly people just wanting to get some space in their life. And so I'm really excited to introduce the panelists we have here today. I'm going to introduce each of them, and then I want each of them to say what their favorite thing about Billings is. This is Better Off in Billings Week. It's a program put on by the Big Sky EDA, which is a public-private partnership. Their goal is to sustain and grow Yellowstone County's economy and help with business attraction, creation, expansion, and retention. And so thank you to Marcel, Steve, and everybody at the Big Sky EDA for all that you guys do. So first I'll introduce Jackie Minick. She is a provider recruiter at SCL Health for St. Vincent Healthcare. She's been there for 5 years and is looking forward to continuing to bring excellent providers to Billings to serve this Billings community. She's been a part of the Billings community for almost 9 years. She has a Master's of Health Administration from Montana State University, and she has truly fallen in love with our hidden gem of Billings. Jackie, why don't you say what your favorite thing about Billings is?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So I would have to say my favorite thing about Billings would be the people. When I bring candidates in and I'm telling them how nice everybody is, they actually are, and they continue to be so. I have providers that have worked here for years and are still surprised that people wave to them when they're going down the street. And we just have such a good and kind community. And I just really value that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackie. Next panelist we have is Amy Schneider. She's the Human Resources Director for Sanderson Stewart, a regional civil engineering, planning, and community development services firm with offices in Montana and Colorado. She has nearly 20 years of experience as an HR professional with broad experience in both specialist and generalist roles. She holds a Bachelor's of Applied Science and Liberal Studies and a Master's of Business Administration, and holds a certification in the Society of Human Resource Management and Certified Professional. Mouthful, I think I got that right. Amy is the Yellowstone Valley chapter president, and she provides leadership for the local chapter as well. Amy, what's your favorite thing about Billings?
I would have to say both the people and the size. I grew up in Havre, Montana, so kind of in the middle of nowhere. So moving to Billings over 20 years ago was like the Mecca for me. There's good shopping, good food, good people, and I love it.
Awesome. Our next panelist is Julie Seedhouse. In Julie's former life, she spent 16 years as a high school English teacher. She was the director of the alumni relations at MSUB and the vice president of advancement at Rocky Mountain College. She made a career change in 2013 to start her life as a real estate agent. She serves on the Billings Chamber Board of Directors, Volunteers of America Advisory Council, and is one of the founding members of 100 Strong here in Billings. Julie, what's your favorite thing about Billings?
My favorite aspect of Billings is downtown. I live here. I spend most of my time in downtown Billings, and I just love how vibrant it is. I love the people that work down here. I love the restaurants and the shopping, and encourage everybody to come down and hang out with me.
Now, Jason, I know you're an Arizona transplant, also currently visiting Arizona. I know I see some of the pictures from you in the pool, so I'm a little jealous of the weather you've been having down there in Arizona. Up here in Billings, it's a little snowy. He is a real estate broker. He is a Better Off in Billings Ambassador and has been involved with the Billings Next Gen group of the Billings Chamber of Commerce. Jason, what's your favorite thing about Billings?
Oh, first and foremost, it's really hard to follow all these resumes that we have. So kudos to all the other panelists here. But my favorite part of Billings for sure is the people and the community that is driven by the people. Being a big time family guy myself with 2 kids, I couldn't have asked for a better place to raise my family. So, and that's solely attributed by the people.
Excellent, excellent. So as we move into kind of the next portion, you've gotten to know your panelists. I encourage all of the attendees to please send questions. I know I'll be monitoring the Q&A, and I just really want to highlight all four of the panelists' expertise here. They're certainly all accomplished, as you can tell by their resumes, and all truly care about Billings. So I kind of want to start off as before the beginning of 2020, what did it look like in terms of your job, in terms of the real estate market, in terms of what was going on, and then that initial change of when COVID happened, and what did that mean for you and for your employees? And so, Julie, let's start off with you. I'd like to give just a little bit of background of like what 2020 was in the beginning, and then as it kind of progressed through COVID in the real estate world.
I would say at the beginning of 2020, things were fairly normal for real estate, in that, things tend to slow down a little bit in the winter, but interest rates were low. So Billings market tends to be strong all the time. And Jason, I know you can back me up on this. We certainly didn't predict how things would go, as didn't anybody, with regard to the pandemic. And during the shutdown, talking with my colleagues, there was genuine fear about what happens next. What will life even look like going forward? We certainly did not predict that it would be the way it is now, given the crazy market situation we have going on now.
Jason, to piggyback off of that, did you see an initial deadening of activity right as when everyone was holed up, and then there was, or was it just like Julie said, moving into the slower season and then a ramp up into the summer? What was your experience like?
Yeah, to compliment Julie on what she stated, we've always been very steady. Our appreciation has been a little higher than the national average. So Billings as a whole, because we are so diverse, we're pretty darn strong, for lack of better terms. But just to, again, attach to what Julie said, was we were all pretty fearful. I think everyone was driven by a little bit of fear, because we had one of two ways that we can go. We could either go up or we can go down. And fortunately, Billings, being as strong as it is, went up, and it went up in a big way. So pretty crazy to see. I don't think any of us anticipated it to be where we're at right now, but very cool for a lot of people.
And I think a lot of that fear, I remember when I was sitting at my house and nobody knew what was going on and we were all locked down, that probably struck a lot of fear in people in keeping their jobs and recruiting talent. So Amy, I'm going to ask you, what was it like with those initial weeks, months of that you were seeing in your industry, as well as Sanderson Stewart, because you guys are heavily tied to the construction and building and developing too. So I'm sure there was a lot of fear with that when COVID started.
Yeah, I would definitely say that there was somewhat of a pause, probably in March and April. Luckily, we were pretty turnkey in the fact that we could take our engineers and send them home right away and get busy. They could take their computers home and get to work. But we had a couple months there with uncertainty, but we got really, really busy. Residential and commercial just took off, and basically it's been a hiring frenzy ever since. So we were very fortunate.
That's great news. That's great news. And I think that one theme that we're already seeing is that consistency, sustainability, kind of just steady Eddie as we go, not only in the real estate market, but in the engineering, which is I think a highlight to Billings is, we never see when a downturn in the economy happens, like, 8% to 10% across the US, it's always a little bit less in Billings, which I think as a talent attraction and recruitment and living here is a bonus. Jackie, what was your guys' world like? I think, I know all of us are very appreciative of what the hospitals have done for our community and all the amount of work and effort. What was it like from your perspective?
Honestly, we all shared the same fear. Nobody knew what was going on. we shut down. I know my entire team across the system was sent home. We put a complete freeze on interviews. There was just a lot going on. A lot of surgeries couldn't happen. We had to slow that down. Any non-essential workers had to go home. And it was really until June that we really started picking up again. We tried to do more virtual, but again, that has its own risks with, not meeting somebody and hiring them. So there was a lot of questions, a lot of frustration with my teams, but overall we got through it, and we're just been picking up since.
What were some of when that shift changed, what were some of the programs that you guys specifically worked on at SEO Health in terms of recruiting talent and trying to maintain some of the momentum that you had? Because obviously you guys are in need, not only from a provider perspective, but also from other jobs that help with the hospital. I know that your specific focus is in providers. What were some of the programs that SEO Health implemented to not only attract talent from outside of Billings, but also within Montana as well?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, I gotta say, nobody really knew what Billings was. Nobody thought of Montana as a place to live and work. And it was more of a struggle just to get our name out there and just to say, hey, this is a great place that you might not know about and you should consider. And really, when the pandemic hit and we started picking up again, it was more that people want that small community. They want that feeling of being safe, of being able to raise their children here. And we found all this, we were able to attract all this talent that beforehand it was a real struggle. So, we do programs, we do, student loan, relocation, sign-on bonuses to really help our people make that transition. We also work closely with the residencies and the university system here to make sure that people feel that, they have a role that's ready for them and that we can attract that top talent.
Awesome. And then I'm going to switch. I know in terms of Julie, what were some of the characteristics as people were moving from out of state that they really loved about Billings? Was there, I know I want to mention, I think everyone wants to mention Bozeman, Missoula, the house prices, but not only how fun is it to live there. What was your experience when you're showing the houses that were available? I know there weren't many and there's still not many. What were people wanting what were consumers wanting?
Well, certainly there's such a movement to wanting to live somewhere that is not a big city, that's safe and clean, and Billings offers that, and the location is a huge benefit, being close to so much recreation. I also, and I'm sure Jason has seen this as well, have seen a big movement of people wanting to come back. So, people that moved away after college and started families, and now they want to be back close to their family. And the shutdown and the pandemic, I think, has motivated that there's this need to want to be close to family. So I've seen a ton of people, young people, moving back to the area. All of a sudden Billings looks really good to those kids that were like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go to a big city. And now it's such a genuine need to be close to their friends and their family and the people that they love. And then just, of course, like you said, Colton, the affordability, Billings, it's clearly our prices have risen considerably. Our values have risen, but we still remain affordable comparatively if you look at Flathead or the Bozeman area. So we've got that benefit too. Still a struggle for our young Billings first-time home buyers. They're getting priced out a little bit of our market, but definitely we remain incredibly competitive price-wise.
Maintaining that competitiveness and, like you said, attracting young families that are getting priced out or young individuals. Amy, I know Sanderson Stewart works with Montana State University in terms of recruiting engineers, and has that been attracting talent, not only having that kind of built-in resource as well as people that have already bought into the Montana lifestyle of being in Bozeman? How has that been from your experience?
Bozeman is where I think everybody in the country wants to live right now. So we've had some of our challenges getting people over here to Billings, but like Julie, you said, you know, they leave after they graduate from college and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I want to come back. And one of the big drivers is commute. People don't want to live in a big city. So, but you know, the Bozeman area, we have quite a few people over there. Our office is about 25 people now. It was about 10 to 12 about a year ago. So we're getting a lot of recent grads. It's much more difficult to find those junior to senior level people, however. So that's been a challenge, and I think that will continue to be a challenge because of all of the retirees happening too. So I think that's one of our biggest struggles right now. The entry level type engineers are easier coming right out of school, especially with Bozeman. So,
Jackie, I'm going to throw it to you. My question would be, what would be some of your advice to large employers in the Billings area in terms of talent attraction, or what has you determined has been the single, 1 to 2 priorities as you're recruiting people? I know there's other business owners on this chat, and I'm sure they'd love to hear from your perspective, not only with providers, but also all employees too. What would be your advice?
Yeah, so I think one of the things with our biggest competitor is Bozeman right now. That's very real. I've lost several providers who want to live there, but the reality is that Billings has the great outdoors so near to us, but without the prices that go along with that. Where Bozeman, Missoula area, really those prices are significantly higher, regardless of the fact that our housing market is going up so much. We're still a lot less. And compared to larger metropolitan cities, we're actually still looking pretty good. So, and I know that my candidates really value that work-life balance and the time they get to spend at home. And the fact that it takes maybe 15 minutes to get home from work is huge for those that are traveling 3+ hours every day and sitting in the car and getting caught up on their audiobooks. Like, they get to spend that time with the family. They get to be home by dinner time. And that's just not something that they find everywhere else.
I want to transition a little bit. We've talked a lot about kind of the beginning of COVID. I'm going to mention a little bit of remote working. I know everyone glazes their eyes when we talk about Zoom, remote. I know but I think it was a real issue, and I think it could have some big implications as we move, into 2021. Jason, did you work with clients from out of state who worked in other states, or were you typically seeing people that wanted to establish roots here in Billings?
We are seeing a very large influx of people coming from the coastal cities and elsewhere into Billings, just because the draw is there. I'm sure Julie can attest that we've had to use our fair share of technology to expedite that. Myself, I have a couple clients that have purchased homes without even physically being in there from start to finish. So in fact, one couple still hasn't seen their house in person. So, there's a lot of trust involved there, but we have seen a very large influx of people coming up, which, not to deviate from the question, Colton, but it produces its own challenges, because the true Montanans that do need to move are having a pretty hard time finding a residence that kind of fits them without being outbid from, the people in the coastal cities. So it's kind of a tough situation right now, but there's hope on the horizon for sure.
And I'm going to ask a question just to the realtors right now. Does it look like the situation's going to get better? I know inventory is an issue, and I know Jason's a numbers guy, so I'm going to say interest rates. How does that affect? Obviously, prices are going up, but interest rates are low. Are we seeing building in the community in terms of new houses to kind of keep that flow of house turnover going, or is it kind of, with everything so expensive, lumber prices, things like that, are we kind of stuck? Be curious to know what you guys think or see.
Julie, I want you to chime in on this. From personal experience, Colton, we're kind of bottlenecked right now. And the reason being is because we have this perfect trifecta of things going on. So we have low interest rates, so hovering around 3 to 3.25%, which are historically extremely low. For the first time since, I think it was like the 1970s, we didn't dip below 3%. We have a surge of people that are moving into town. Now, right now, we only have 102 homes active on the market, and only of those that are under 350,000, we have 52 homes, which is kind of surprising. Normally, we're about 3 times that amount. Now, our sales have been very consistent in the sense that we're selling the same amount of homes that we were last year at this time, but we just don't have that backlog of inventory like we used to have. So typically we had 3-4 months worth of inventory, but now we just have about a month's worth of inventory. So it makes it extremely challenging, but it's doable. I don't think that any of these issues are something that can't be accomplished. You just have to do it in the right way and from the right professional. And I'm sure Julie can attest to that as well.
Yeah, I represent a builder who's kind of a one-man show. He's a pretty prolific builder, but he can only do so much, and we're selling just dirt at this point. People are willing to engage in a contract for a house that won't be completed till the end of September at this point. And one of the issues we have is, if we list a spec home, within a week, the price changes because the supply prices have changed. In one day, a couple of weeks ago, countertops went up 20% in a day. Trusses are up several $1,000s from what they were a couple of weeks ago. So you just have to be very fluid and prepare buyers for, it's just an unusual situation. But yeah, I think that everything that Jason said is correct, that it is looking better, in my opinion. First thing I do in the morning is check how many houses have come on the market in the last 24 hours. And for a while we were seeing 2 or 3 or 5, and now we're at, like 15, 17. So that to me is good news.
Yeah, that is good news. I hope that number keeps going up as a future home buyer as I look to see. And I'm like, well, the numbers keep going up, so it's hard. It's hard to say, do you keep waiting? Are we in a bubble, or is it just hot right now? And there's about a million different opinions, so that does make it tough. I want to pose a question to the recruiters. What has been what are we doing as a community, what are we doing as a community to attract and retain talent? We've talked about real estate, we've talked about Zoom work. Does something like the community attraction, does that come up in the conversations that you have when you guys are talking with potential employees?
Yeah, I'll go first. It absolutely does. Community is huge for the providers and especially their families. What really can attract them is the amenities, which I think we really are working towards. We're growing. The downtown has improved so much in the last few years. And I know that's a huge thing for them. We've got these great restaurants. We've got so many breweries and coffee houses, and that's wonderful because, they want to work. They want a really good practice. But outside of that, they want to be able to take their kids to the trampoline park or go skiing on the weekend. And so I think Billings continuing to really hone in on those amenities is huge for us.
I also believe it's our schools too. We've got some great schools. A lot of young families starting out want to have a school that they can, drop their kids off to in the morning and buzz over to work and not have that commute again. That's a big one, not having a commute. The bike trails, the downtown area, the breweries, good restaurants. We've got a revamped theater, which is great. Yeah, I think we've come a long way. So
We're starting to have some really good questions come into the chat box. So enough of me talking and more asking you guys, which is great. This comes from Dan Carter. Question for the group. Is there a way to think about talent retention in the same way we're thinking about talent attraction? What can we do as a community to retain the young, talented people that are already here in Billings that want to move out? So I'm going to pose that to the group.
I think making those connections truly, you know, I have providers that are moving here without families or without knowing anyone, and being able to make those connections in the community, that's what makes a person stay. So I know I've spoken with Marcel a little bit about this as far as like the ambassador group, but I really think that that's what makes or breaks somebody staying for the long term, is how they fit into that community. You know, do they get into hockey or other activities with larger groups, and what that kind of camaraderie is.
Colton, I also think that, you know, without coming off too cliche, the grass is green where you water it, not on the other side, right? So I think just as Jacqueline stated that, you know, to be a community, we have to help each other. And during COVID, that was a really tough time. I know the hospitals were really struggling with the morale, but it takes everyone, you know, as just simple as being kind to each other. That's really what creates the community. And it's the day-to-day duties that people should focus on, you know, and just try to be nice to one another. We're such a small town, but with a lot of charm, and I think we have that capability to just boost each other up.
I think I would add to the piggyback off the community aspect. You know, I'm gonna highlight the Billings Next Gen group. I think that's been a great piece of, or tool of this community of integrating college students and young professionals, which I would consider myself at the ripe age of 26, not young for much longer, but, you know, I think attracting me as a Billings born and raised, attracting people like me and others on this Zoom call, that's like the key, because we're bought into the community already. We've lived here, and really keeping those. So Dan, I really appreciate that question. I want to bring up a good question from Carrie Sherman, which I think this all poses to the group too. Is there a concern that the influx of transplants is largely reactive? And when the pandemic is over, there will be a migration back to larger cities as transplants start to miss their previous lifestyles and amenities of the big city, and companies start to shift back to more of a in-person work preference?
That's a great question, and something that we have talked about frequently in my office, honestly, that, you know, people think, oh my gosh, I can live in the quote unquote country and live this much more simple lifestyle. And what happens when we have a real winter? And, you know, they've come here from somewhere much warmer, and I don't know the answer. It will be very interesting to see what happens as people really get into this lifestyle, and is it not enough for them?
I think there may be some people that do decide to go back to that, but there will be, I think, more that like the slower pace. You know, going into a big city and living that lifestyle, again, the commute and the expensive daycare and all of that. I think we can offer and offset that and give people a better quality of life.
Just to tie into that, Colton, I think we as humans, our memories are extremely short. So, you know, even though we're on the tail end of this whole COVID thing, unfortunately, people might migrate back to their old philosophy or way of thinking, you know, and just late 2019, the whole surge was these tiny homes and people living in this dense population status. But COVID kind of expanded their thought on that, and do want that, you know, kind of country living that Montana seems to expose there. So great question. Great question.
Another question from the audience, from Aaron Pratt. How big of a factor are the increased flights and direct flights into Billings for people considering relocating to Billings?
Yeah, I think that is definitely a factor that they are considering and they're looking at. At the same time, though, we still have a fantastic airport to get through. It takes you 45 minutes, which is unheard of everywhere else. So, yes, maybe the tickets are increasing and, having to travel to a major hub first before you go anywhere is also a factor. But I know our candidates and our providers love that because, they do have family other places, and they just can't get enough of that airport, though.
I think I will add too that it's been nice. We keep hearing the talk of Bozeman has a direct flight to Los Angeles. They have all these direct flights, and so I know with Billings, it's been nice that now there's a direct flight to Chicago and there's flights to San Diego and things like that. And I think hopefully, I think we're all starting to travel more and everyone will have a real itch to fly. But having that capability to easily access our airport with the new renovations they're doing, it should be a world-class airport. We're getting lots of questions. This is good. Another one, what can we do to get more progressive minds like you all to run for local offices like City Council? And that's from Leif Welhaven.
Good question, Leif. That is a job in itself, City Council. Definitely encourage anyone to get involved. I think that's the real beauty of Billings is that, in bigger cities like from Arizona, for example, running for City Council is darn near impossible. But Billings is big enough to really make a difference. But to run for City Council is achievable if you want it, and I think that everyone is the people that make the decisions. I truly do feel like they hear our voice because there's no middleman in this. They get direct feedback from us, and whether they vote to our liking or a different way, I do feel like they're close enough to hear us as the general population.
Jason, I'll work on your campaign.
You got it, Julie. Let's do it. Let's do it.
This was a question from Steve Arbiscow. It was a little bit back, and I wanted to circle back to this. And I'll have each of you answer this because I think this applies to all. Name 2 changes for Billings that would support talent retention and attraction efforts. I'll start with Jason, and then we'll go to Julie.
Ooh. Repeat that question one more time, Colton. That one's a big one to chew off.
Name 2 changes for Billings that would support talent retention and attraction efforts.
Well, I think for the talent retention, I think we need to put each other first. As I, kind of go back to that other answer that I gave earlier. We need the retention, and I think, from someone that wasn't raised in Billings, I hear all the time from people that were raised here that they think everywhere else is better than Billings, but I could tell you for certain that's not the case. And you see that with a lot of kids that, go off to college elsewhere and end up moving back. Billings is such a great town, and it has so much potential. And there's just, again, it's easier to look at what you don't have than what you do have. And right now, I'd say post-COVID, I think we're only going to get stronger as a community. And I think that in turn is going to help retain people. But it's very hard to compete with like a Denver per se, because you got a young traveling mind that wants to experience new things. And I get that. And sometimes that's needed. But I think ultimately family is a big retention holder here in Billings. And I think eventually people will understand what they do have and move back to Billings. As far as attracting new people, again, it's very hard to compete with with like a Denver per se, but we have a lot of great things. You know, we're Montana's trailhead, so we're at a great place to attract those people that are really into the outdoors. And, you know, having Yellowstone right in our backyard is such a hidden gem to a lot of people.
Julie, I'll send it to you, and then we'll have Jackie and Amy.
So, two things. I would love to see a more aggressive infusion of funds into our parks, especially utilizing the river, which I know Big Sky EDA is at the table with the Colson Park redo, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I think, you know, I get a lot of questions from people who are moving into Billings from out of town. What kind of parks, what kind of recreation, what kind of trails? So I think we're doing well on that, but I think more effort to that would be good for Billings. And then personally, I would love to see Billings adopt a non-discrimination order that just sends a message to people that Billings is a diverse and equitable and inclusive community. I believe that we are, but I think, you know, people Google Billings when they're going to move here, and when they see that that's something that we haven't been able to pass, it brings up questions, you know, why not? And I think the message that we could send would be incredibly valuable if we said, yes, we as a city really embrace the idea of equity and inclusion.
And I want to add, Jackie, I'm just going to add, I want to add too to this question that I hope you and Amy will ask is, and what are you specifically showing to interviewees that highlights Billings to, in terms of resources or things like, what are you referring them to as well?
Yeah, so a large part of COVID is the people aren't wanting to travel. So, you know, perhaps I have a provider, but their family can't travel for whatever reason. And I think having such a strong online presence is absolutely necessary, because there is still some fear out there. I mean, yes, we're at the tail end, but that doesn't mean that everybody's ready to jump on a plane and go to a city that they've never heard of or anything without doing some research to make sure that it's worth that trip. So I know that we do have some resources and we're continuing to work on those. But in the past, it has been very difficult. And so I think just really revving that up is going to be helpful. I would also like to say that Julie's absolutely right. Having a diverse community is huge for candidates. You know, they want a place, again, that they feel included in their practice, but they also want to feel included in their community. So just having that ability, you know, I can say, you know, yeah, we might not be terribly diverse, but we're a terribly welcoming community. You know, we're a kind people, and but it's still hard. You know, you still have the majority of the people are Caucasian, and it's very difficult.
So as far as what I'm doing to attract talent, well, COVID's kind of offset some of this, but in the past, we bring people into Billings, and I'll grab one of our engineers or landscape architects or a planner, and we'll hop in the car and we'll do a tour. I take them through various neighborhoods and into the downtown area and through some of our parks and some of our home developments. The McCall developments were popular for some of our younger groups that want to move into Billings. And I connect them with the chamber as well. They've got good resources for, you know, all the moving components of, you know, relocating and what Billings has to offer. So I kind of give them that face-to-face glance at Billings and all areas of Billings, honestly. I think it's important, and they need to see that. So it does take a lot of time, but it's worth it. Oops, you're on mute. Oops.
Another question for the panelists. and this is from Dave Ballard, and I'll pose this to Julie and Jason. What examples can you give on the industries or jobs that have attracted folks to Billings?
Well, our hospital corridor is a big driver. My wife works for Billings Clinic, and we are kind of the regional hub here as far as the hospitals go. So that's a big attraction, as well as our colleges, both Rocky and MSU Billings. In addition to, of course, like the refineries, we're a very diverse employment hub, which makes our community strong. In the event that one tanks, the other ones kind of prop it up. So, Julie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. A lot of what we're seeing in myself personally in business is medical. And honestly, just people wanting to move to Billings and being able to work from home is also a big driver right now.
I'm seeing a little bit of a lull from the questions that we're getting in. I kind of posed this at the beginning, but what are your guys' expectations? And I'll start off with the recruiters and then I'll move to the real estate agents. But for Jackie and Amy, what are things you're expecting in 2021 as we move forward? I know we're already a quarter of the way through the year, but what do you expect in terms of your role, in terms of what you see, in terms of talent attraction and retention going on, and what has, permanently changed too, that probably won't go back to being the same as well. So that was kind of a two-pronged question. So Jackie, I'll have you start.
All right. So remote working for those that don't have to be in the hospital is probably going to continue as much as it can. Honestly, we exceeded all of our goals for recruitment in 2020. So we didn't skip a beat. And so a large number of people aren't really feeling that they need to be in the office 5 days a week. So that's going to be something. I don't know what the future holds, if things start going back to normal and people start going back into the office, but I can say for 2021, it's looking like we're going to be staying remote. And then also, though, we are still getting that really great influx of qualified candidates that I'm very excited about. So hopefully we can continue and keep building our programs and serve the community with more medical.
And for Sanderson Stewart, we continue to see a high demand for our services. And of course, with the Biden administration and the $2 trillion infrastructure package that's being rolled out, there's plenty involved with that that's going to keep our employees happy and our growth on the positive side. We are going to be bringing pretty much everybody back. Our culture is very conducive to that one-on-one mentoring, training, and client interaction. So there will be some circumstances and special projects that may require some off-site or remote work, but we're looking to bring everyone back. So looking forward to that within the next 60, maybe 90 days. So, yeah.
Jason, I'll throw it to you. What's permanently changed in your world? What do you expect, in 2021, 2022?
As far as the housing market goes, it's very hard to say what's going to happen in the next year. I think we're at kind of the same point as where we were a year ago in the sense of we don't know what's going to happen. There are a lot of new builders out there that are building homes at a frantic pace to keep up with this demand that we have going on right now. But unfortunately, without the crystal ball, housing is, generally pretty steady. However, right now it's incredibly volatile in the sense that we have a lot of people that are wanting to purchase homes, but there's just no ability to because we don't have that surplus. So from a real estate perspective, I think it's going to stay I think it's going to stay the way that it is right now, probably for the next year or so, but very hard to say with any certainty because it is very volatile.
I'm so glad you went first, Jason, because I don't have any answers. I do think interest rates will stay very reasonable, and that's good for everybody. I will say, not to make a prediction, but offer something that I hope we see. And thank you, Nicole King, for putting this in the chat. I would love to see more infill rather than expansion in Billings. So taking advantage of, the north side and doing work there, and renovating old buildings downtown, like the Frat middle school project that the Fag family has done, trying to create more that is centrally available rather than sprawl. So I can't predict that it'll happen, but I hope it will.
Jason, I'm going to hold you to that real estate prediction, by the way. So thanks for being the guinea pig on that. This is another question to our panelists from Michael Marsh. There seems to be an ongoing debate between discussing talent attraction. Some believe that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Billings to attract particularly high-tech professionals, work-from-home oriented, versus competitive cities in the region, while others believe that we need to invest in infrastructure before putting any significant budget towards online outreach. Did any of you guys, or the panelists, have thoughts on that question? Long-winded question, but I think essentially saying, do we need to invest in our infrastructure of really building out the capabilities for people to work from anywhere here in Billings, and that we can attract talent besides Bozeman and Missoula?
I guess that would be dependent on what those bigger industries and companies are looking for long term. I think we do have a lot of pros in regards to tax advantages, for moving here and having tech companies move here. In fact, I think there are a couple. I don't want to speak out of my scope here, but I know there have been some potential firms to move here, but I just don't know where that's at right now, so I can't answer that completely.
I'm going to ask another question. A lot of these are similar. This is from Mike Ormsby. How do you get people that are already here and that want more job growth to engage and educate the older population about things that make up the workforce recruitment necessary and a necessity to this community? And I think I would answer that by electing leaders in positions of city council, and really just I think a lot of it depends on our local leaders. And so I don't know if I know we've talked about engaging city council, more progressive view, and I think the WGO is important. And so I don't know if there's any specific examples that our panelists have about really trying to engage and commit our older generation, which is a big portion of this community, engaging those people that maybe sit on the fence.
I think the leadership that all of the panelists, and Colton, you too, provide in Billings. I mean, I see such a great kind of influx of young people being very involved in the community and speaking out and taking on challenges. And I think that's exactly what it takes, speaking from the old guard of the group here. I think you all have already affected change in Billings.
I think the programs in Leadership Billings, Leadership Montana, all of those are so wonderful and such a great opportunity for people to learn more about leadership in our state.
Colton, opportunities are definitely there as well. Marcel does a really great job. The chamber does a great job. Big Sky, the EDA, there are plenty of opportunities to get people engaged for those that want to put forth some effort, but ultimately it just takes a little bit of effort.
There's another question kind of for our panelists in comments. This is from Nicole, and she mentions that for keeping young folks as my kids preparing to graduate high school, they aren't seeing as many businesses come in and talk to them about what is great about staying here, offering to train them, pay for schooling, things like that. And not to steal from the panelists, but I'm going to answer this question. I know Bo, Berensma, and the workforce, the career coaches, I think there's been a real shift and transition, not only at the career center, but also within the high schools, of effort and momentum trying to bring the Billings community in terms of work, jobs, bringing that into the classroom. I know if anybody, I highly encourage anybody to go out to the Career Center. You'll be amazed at the activities, programs that are offered there on a daily basis. I know COVID has really hampered a lot of the momentum that they have, but I'm really encouraged about what Greg Upham is doing and what they continue to do out there, not only from the health sciences occupations track. Kids are starting that as freshmen. It's like amazing. I wish any of us would have had the opportunity or even known about it. And I think Billings is kind of at an inflection point in terms of that. And I think that would be another theme of this is there's a cool thing about being better off in Billings is we all have the ability to make change, elect leaders. And so I think that's the cool thing about being in Billings is we can all do that. Even, not only the panelists, but everybody who's attending this call, we all have that opportunity to really have a voice in that. I think that's why Billings is a small community in that sense, is you can really ruffle some feathers, as I like to say, of creating some positive change. I'm looking forward, just in case we have any more questions from our attendees. And I'm not seeing any, but I want to pose one more. If we don't see any more questions, I'll ask one more question to the group. What are you most excited? I asked, what are you most excited about Billings being in Billings? This is kind of playing along the lines of that. What are you most excited about to do in 2021 and 22 that you haven't been doing as we kind of move out of the pandemic? What are you excited about, or what do you think there's some momentum building for this community? And I'll start off with you, Jason. I'll throw you on the spot.
I think we've had a lot of time to reflect on what is going well and what isn't going well right now. Kind of tying back into that previous question, Colton, in regards to what opportunities we have. Like One Big Sky Center was a great example of, I think, where we're at as a community. And I think it was just a little too early for us, but COVID has made us reflect on the change that we need and the change that can make our future look as bright as it can be. And that starts with getting involved and really expressing what we as a community want as a whole and where we want to take that. Like Julie said, the non-discrimination, that's a big deal to a lot of people, all of us, I'm sure, and everyone that's participating in this is, so to be as inclusive as possible this is a great opportunity to do that.
Julie, I'll send it to you.
Well, the first thing that came to mind when you said, what are you looking forward to? The things that we used to take advantage of, like Farmers Market and Alive After 5 and events where we can be together, that is what I'm most looking forward to. That, I live downtown. Many Alive After 5s happen right outside my window, literally outside my living room window right there. And I would not go. And now I'm dying to go. A really cool side note for Billings, Sean Lynch, who owns the pub station, is on the national level for saving small stages. He's engaged with the White House and a big part of discussions about saving small music venues, which I think is really cool. And he's, obviously they've started doing events, but things are going to open up and he's planning some downtown stuff, and DBA is doing Alive After 5s in August, and there will be a concert at the zoo. And those are the things I can't wait for.
Jackie, you go next.
Yeah. So I have to agree with Julie. I am so excited for all the events that I never took advantage of before. I am ready for Strawberry Festival and some strawberry shortcake, and just to be able to do those events with people that I miss. I miss seeing people and interacting, and Zoom is great, and I am very much enjoying this panel, but it's not the same. And so I am so excited to interact with people in real life, and just be able to have that social aspect back again.
Yeah, I agree with all of those statements as well. Bringing back the business after hours and Alive After 5, and getting Alberta Bear Theatre open and up and running again. Just bringing people back together. I even miss career fairs. I miss shaking the hands of all those students, and they're all so excited to come to work, and I miss that interaction for sure.
So I'll be the last one to answer this. It seems like there's a theme of community and face-to-face meeting with people. I think the thing that I'm missing most, or most excited about, is just being at a coffee shop in Billings and just running into people that you see on an everyday basis. You walk into Rock Creek and you're just having a cup of coffee with a meeting, and you see 4 people that you know. Like, I think that's those casual, just spur of the moment interactions is something that I've been missing, and so very excited about that. I know Billings is a lot farther along than most other communities in this country, which we're thankful for, and thankful for what we've been doing as a community and getting vaccinated, and what our healthcare services is doing. So before I close it, I do want to mention we do have the Aligning Education with Workforce Needs at 2 p.m. later today with another set of panelists. Thank God you won't have to listen to me again. Dan Carter is going to be facilitating that. And I know towards the end of our conversation, there was a big focus on education. So it'll definitely tie into what our community is doing in terms of high school, junior high, career center, and things like that. And so for those of you that feel like maybe we didn't quite get enough of what you're looking for in terms of the education piece, I encourage you to come back at 2 p.m. Great panel of speakers. And so I want to say thank you to all for joining. Thank you for the Big Sky Economic Development for putting this on. I think this is a great event. I know next year we'll look forward to doing this in person. And so that will be great. I highly encourage all of you to go out to search Better Off in Billings. There's Better Off in Billings ambassadors, all recruiters and companies. Please use us. I'm a Better Off in Billings ambassador. I know Julie and Jason are. Please use us. We'd love to connect with potential hirees, or even people who are new to your company or moving. I know we have a great list of people who have a diverse background and all sorts of things that can really highlight what makes Billings great. For those on Instagram, Better Off in Billings, and then on Facebook as well. So thank you to all your panelists, Jackie, Amy, Julie, and Jason. I really appreciate your time, and thank you to Marcel for organizing this. And I think that will wrap it up for the event today.